for you. We got history for you. You don't have to. You don't need to bring your own. Just assimilate it and blend in and become us. That last statement is the beginning of as soon as we begin to forget, as soon as we get a little change in, and we begin to forget where we come from, begin to forget the path and despise our beginnings. As soon as that happens, and we begin to grab a hold of Pharaoh's belonging and dismiss our own traditions, who we are, trying to be like somebody else, trying to act like somebody else because of a political party or because they have some assets that we think that we can benefit from. As soon as we begin to dismiss what mama and grandma put in us, as soon as we begin to dismiss where we come from, and we are ashamed of how we speak. We're ashamed of our dialect, ashamed of who we are, ashamed of our family members, ashamed of where we come from, because some other folk that could care less about us anyway has allowed us in their land and given us the best of their land to consume. As soon as that begins to happen, as soon as we begin to try to act like somebody else, when we got the best stuff, they pay money to look like our women. We got the best stuff. As soon as we begin to forget, they try their best to be us. And we forget who we are. The decline begins. And then over in Exodus chapter 1, in Exodus, this is what the scripture says. Verse 11, it says, so the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. Hold on. In the next book, y'all come in and get what you want. Get your 40 acres and a mule. Get what you want. Come on over here into our circle and get what you want. But one chapter later, one book later, it says the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. They appointed brutal slave drivers over them. They appointed judges that could care less about justice. They appointed folk that could care less about doing right. They appointed college trustees and college presidents that only had one purpose in mind. They appointed to wear them down with crushing labor. They changed laws. They said it ain't really the cocaine that's bad. It's the cocaine that black folks selling. It's the bad stuff. And so you're going to get 20 years for a little bit of crack, but you get probation for a whole lot of cocaine. Brutal slave drivers. They built prisons to take our men out of our communities. They tricked us into supporting legislation because presidents know how to play a saxophone or a trumpet or whatever they is, and they tricked us. They changed laws and they made it difficult, unfair, unjust law, and tricked us into going along. It says, so the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. They appointed brutal slave drivers, hope over them, hoping to wear them down with crushing labor. They forced them to build the cities of Pithom and Ramses of the king. The climate has now changed for the Hebrews, receiving a warm welcome to now being perceived and treated as suspects or targets of systems that have the intentions to break us down. System in America ain't broke. It's doing just what it was designed to do. Well, we got tricked because we thought that Pharaoh cared. Pharaoh's motto is once a Hebrew, always a Hebrew. And they got tricked into believing that Pharaoh cared. Unfortunately, we get distracted by trying to identify and remove oppressive people to topple systems. Yeah, it's good that you got Trump out of office, but Trump ain't the problem. It's the system that supports, elevates, and pushes the oppressive forces forward. School to prison pipeline. Wherever you live, go and check the rates of suspension and expulsion. Go and check the minority, disproportionate minority contact. See how many times the police officers are called to come and deal with our children, to where mom and dad is called to deal with other children doing the same thing. And if you think this is a Democrat or Republican issue, you done lost your mind. Pharaoh is Pharaoh whether he got a red shirt on. Racial profiling. Riding down the street just because of how you look. Folk already determined that you're doing something wrong just so they can get in your business and try to find something. Systems. And then in verses 12 through 14 of the book of Exodus, Scripture said, but the more the Egyptians oppressed them. I got a witness in the house. The more that the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they sit next to Pharaoh boys with badges. When you see that boy, you beat him to death. A Hebrew. When Pharaoh do it, it takes 6 months for the video to get released. Ain't no charges. They might get suspended. You learn that you still a Hebrew. Pharaoh then ordered his people to drown all the Hebrew boys. Now drowning is a form of suffocation. To breathe or retrieve air. I can see the Hebrew boys now dying in the water while mouthing the words, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Their own women turning them in, thrown in the water, and they're yelling, I can't breathe. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. The system came against me, and I did the time. I got out. I'm trying to do right. I'm trying to take care of my family. But every road I turn, I can't breathe. When I walk in my own neighborhood, I'm dodging bullets from my own Hebrew folk. I can't breathe. How many of us are living life, trying to live our best life, but it seems that I can't breathe. People of African descent didn't necessarily receive a warm welcome when arriving in this country. But after the Civil War and the ending of slavery, land was promised, as in the case of the Hebrews. But that promise was soon reversed through the passing of Jim Crow laws and systems. Although slavery was legally ended, new forms of slavery were implemented through Jim Crow laws that attempted to nullify any progress made through Reconstruction. In these new systems of slavery, they were implemented, that they were brutal, but the descendants of Africa still thrive. My grand bought 100 acres of land in Quitman, Georgia, born in 1904, son of a free slave but still survive